Just as you wouldn't start building a house without a blueprint, you shouldn't start writing a story unless you have a plot structure in place first. A plot structure is like the blueprint for your story. Of course, every story has a start and an end. The way you get from that start to the end is your plot structure. A standard story should begin with exposition, then contain some rising action, until it reaches a point of climax, finally followed by resolution to reach the end of the story. In this lesson, we're going to talk about exposition. And exposition is where you provide essential background information required to understand your story. By essential background information, I mean information on the character or characters, the setting, and the plot. Without this information, your audience can feel lost and have a hard time understanding what's going on or why it's happening. I'm going to show you two examples of exposition. First, let's look at an example of ineffective exposition. The bunny decided to visit her friend. She quickly headed off on her long journey to see him. This exposition is ineffective because although I mentioned who the character is, a bunny, I don't know much about her. Also, I know that she's going off to see her friend, but why is she going? Where is she right now? What's that journey going to be like? This is a bit of an extreme example, but unless you take the time to consciously plan your exposition, to introduce your characters, setting, and plot, you'll often find your writing lacks some element of the exposition. Now let's take a look at a very simple example of a more effective exposition. The lonely bunny princess looked out at the sunrise from her burrow in the forest and decided it would be a marvelous day to visit her best friend, the mischievous squirrel prince. He lived on the other side of the forest, where a dangerous dragon lived, so she would have to be careful. So this is a very simple example in order to keep it short, and so that you can see what I mean by exposition. Here, we have a little bit of exposition into the characters. We know that the bunny is a princess, and that she's lonely. And that her friend is a prince, in fact a squirrel prince, who's rather mischievous. We know that the characters live in a forest, and that the princess lives in a burrow. We also have a little indication of what's going to happen in the plot by discussing the dangerous dragon who may be blocking her journey. Now let me be clear, I want to emphasize that this example of exposition is very simple. A good exposition is going to have to be a lot longer and more detailed than this, but I'm just trying to give you an indication of the kinds of things that you need to include in your exposition.